Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8 to 5, and 8 5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my can use and 8 5, this is 7 November, Charlie. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, reference to your last, you're Brandon 158, extra 5 o'clock, 1200 between teams, that's local. Also request 3 units take outbound message to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for pause at the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that.
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf, my unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Hey, I never took a dip. I forgot to take a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over.
This is Whiskey 9, go.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over.
This is Whiskey 9, go.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. November 8 to 5, and 8 5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go.
All right, welcome to another live stream. We're on all channels right now. The CivDiv with myself, the most, mediocrity at its finest is what I like to say. We have Jason from Veterans Info Tap, Jason and myself from Veterans Daily. And as always, we have VA Housing Education with David, the one and only, honestly, the only veteran VA expert that I know. In this live stream, we're going to be actually answering your questions, VA home loan questions, VA disability questions, or you've been focused on policy, lots of policy level, VA administration level questions. And with that, I do want to start. We have a banger out the gate here. So first, we have a new member. I don't know who's member for each channel, but regardless, if it helps one of us, it helps all of us. So thank you very much. And we also have a $50 donation, which is absolutely insane. Eli, I'm going to say that for short. I hope you go by Eli. If not, I'm sorry. And he says, hey, Clay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you, dude. I always feel really weird when people donate, especially when we're talking like $50. It just I don't know what to say, right? But Eli he says he finally got 100% PNT, all because of the knowledge gained from your channel, your co-channel, Veterans Daily, and Jason's channel. Of note, he put your channel last, Jason. So,
the story. It's the best for last, right?
Yeah. So thank you, brother. So first off, Eli, thank you very much. And I think what Eli says here kind of gets to the point of what we want to cover in this stream is there is, that meme where the dog is sitting, he has his cup of coffee and everything's on fire. And he's like, this is fine. Everything is fine. That's kind of what it feels like in the veteran sphere right now with all the changes And I can tell you, as a federal employee, that's like, I went in the office today and everyone is on pins and needles. Everyone I work with is a veteran. And so that's kind of the feeling right now. And I think what Eli says here kind of brings this stream together is we're going to focus on what matters most. So if you're in the process of buying a home or looking at your budget, what can you do to actually go through that, that purchase or whatever it is it looks like for you? If you're in the process of trying to get 100% P&T, and I'm going to change that to be properly rated, we're going to answer questions. And if you do have policy level questions, myself and Jason have been following that very, very closely. Too much, actually. I kind of want to blow my brains out right now. But yeah, that's all I got. David, go ahead and introduce yourself. And then I could just kind of pick some questions here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. As usual, it's a pleasure. Happy to answer a lot of questions. And for folks that don't know who I am, my channel, VA Housing Education, is all around understanding your VA home loan benefits and just kind of the real estate market and how all these changes that are happening in real time actually affect your ability to purchase a property. And I do get a lot of questions on what I do. And so I do. So I'm a lender, right? Do VA home loans. So if you want help with the VA loan process, I can do that, because people will call and they'll be like, I saw you on a live stream, but I'm not quite sure what you do. I know you got a lot of good information. So that's what I do. But that's kind of how we all got together. I was researching my VA disability stuff, found these guys, and then just kind of, it's a good balance to the mix, because it's, getting VA disability compensation is a source of income. You got to know how to budget. You got to know what you can do with that and leverage it, because there's so much that you can do that a lot of veterans just leave it on the table.
Yeah, Jason, I have a question for you, and then I'm going to go through the chat and just kind of star some questions as I get going. But Bobby D's, probably my all-time favorite YouTube name I've ever read in my life, says when it comes to the 5, 10, and 20-year rules, it's based on your effective date and not the date of the decision letter. Can you answer that for Bobby D's here? Also, yeah. Can you just talk about the 5, 10, 20, and the 55-year rule? Because people get those wrong all the time. There's actually protections, and it's not 5 year or 55 year. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, yeah. Okay, look. So here's the deal. When you get your claim in process and finally it gets awarded, there is the award letter and a date. Oftentimes, your effective date is going to be either the date that you filed your claim, or it's going to be the date of your intent to file, which is a great extension. And a lot of people utilize the intent to file, and you should, because it takes the weight off as you're getting ready to file your claim. So now you need to understand your effective date. When we're talking about the 5-year rule, it's a little bit different of a mentality as we're looking at all these different things. So the 5-year rule is really a protection from the VA being able to really just reduce your rating kind of willy-nilly. They have to go in and really show that you've improved in multiple occasions. It's not just a one-time improvement. It has to be multiple occasions that they're really seeing some improvement in your condition based on the rating schedule in which you were awarded. That's also an important piece. So they're always looking at the rating schedule that you were awarded on. Now, when you hear the 5-year rule, it's also important to understand what's less than the 5 years? What does that really mean? What you have to watch out for in the less than 5-year aspect is that re-examination, okay? The re-examination, which should be listed in your award letter that you are subject to a future examination, will typically fall between the 2-year and 5-year mark. Why? Because the threshold is lower to reduce you if you got better. So any conditions that they see that have a history of actually getting better with medical treatment and so forth, they will throw out that future exam. Once you go past that 5 years, now it's much harder for them to reduce you. The 10-year rule is protecting your service-connected condition. They cannot sever your service connection. So once you have 10 years of being service connected for a specific condition, they can't sever it unless it's fraud. There's always that exception. The 20-year rule, this one is really, I think, misunderstood sometimes. There is a twist in the 20-year rule. Yes, the effective date that you're looking at over 20 years, what they're looking at is what rating have you been at a minimum for that 20 years. Remember, a lot of us, Clay, will file for an increase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that increase changes the aspects of the 20-year rule. The quick example, and then I'll pass it back to you. The quick example for folks is I filed a claim, got awarded, my effective date's X. I've been rated now, we'll say 10 years for migraines at 10% rating. Now, I filed an increase, and just to use easy numbers, it happened right away. Filed my increase at the 10-year mark. Boom, they awarded at the same time. And now I'm at 30%. Another 10 years goes by. Well, now I've been rated for migraines for 20 years. Great, 20-year rule comes into play. Your 10% rating has been there for at least 20 years. So they will protect that 10% rating, and they won't ever reduce you from that. You are completely protected. But what about that 30%, Clay? Well, you got another 10 years to wait. Once you hit that other 10 years, well, now you got 30% rating at 20 years, and now that is now going to be protected under the 20-year rule. Back to you, Clay.
Yeah, and I'd like to summarize that because a lot of people confuse 5 and 55-year rule as a protection, and just to be straight with you, it's not. It's just a 5 and 55-year for static. There's only 3 protections. I said 2 is kind of like a trick one there. There's the 10, the 20-year, which Jason just explained. The third protection, which is very relevant right now, is whenever a rating schedule changes, right? And so veterans are still protected or grandfathered in, if you will, would be a good way to say it. Now, for you, David, we do have some home loan questions here, and I need to find it.
Well, let me ask you a question about what you guys are talking about. So what if you get your rating and then you never go to the VA for treatment because you have private health insurance and they have 0 records on you? What happens then?
Nothing. So remember, it's separate, right? So one, VBA, Veterans Benefits Administration, awarded you that claim. They really don't care what's happening. In the event that here's the risk. You get a future exam, right? 4 years later. You have no records with the VHA, Veterans Healthcare Administration. So if you have that future exam, you might want to start pulling all of your records from your private medical facility and be able to get those into the VA's hands so they understand that you have been being treated for that specific condition. Anything you want to add, Clay?
No, it's when it comes to routine future exams, veterans always ask me, how do I know my condition's static? One, if you have a newer decision letter, and I'm going to say in the last 3 years, and it's more than that, but if your decision letter does not say routine future exam, you do not have a routine future exam, meaning your condition's static. And so there you go. That's your answer. And I know someone's going to say, well, I don't see it on mine. It's because you don't have one. And when it comes to I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if you're not quite sure, reach out to an accredited rep. They can then get into the VBMS system from VA within a week and be able to look and tell you which one of your conditions are static and not.
Yeah, and I have to say, because I know a lot of veterans are tinfoil hat-y, right? I can sometimes be one of those. If you have the means for private insurance, which keep in mind, if you're rated 50% overall or higher, your healthcare is free at the VA. But if you have the means for private insurance, in my opinion, it is better for VA claims. Healthcare, you're going to have to make your healthcare decisions on your own. But for VA claims, in my experience, I see faster diagnoses through private insurance. And then obviously the VA doesn't have access to your private records. And so you can kind of, when needed, pick and choose what evidence you're going to submit with your claim. It's just, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. I feel more protected through private insurance, and that's a personal thing. And I kind of want to leave it at that because that's going to go downhill real fast. But for you, David, so Jennifer says, thank you for your earlier videos on the FICO score. And then we have a question that I'm not a VA person. That's why we have you here, but I'm pretty sure these two are related. It says, thanks, lender, their local bank wants my score up and debt reduced. Can you talk about what that looks like for veterans specifically? Maybe throw in how VA disability compensation can help that conversation. What does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, thanks for dropping that. I did a video earlier today. There's going to be a new FICO system scoring model that's coming out here this summer that basically veterans or people across in general, a third of the people are going to see a reduction of 20 points. A third are going to see an increase of 20 points. And then the rest are going to kind of have no change. And it's basically, if you carry balances, that's going to have a negative effect. And I think they also mentioned like your utilization is going to drop from 30 to 10%. So they really want people to budget correctly, because right now we're seeing a large increase in defaults. So that's just kind of a side thing. Now, when it comes to what I'm assuming, Ron, thanks for dropping a comment, is you went to the bank, you submitted an application, and for what you're looking for, they're basically saying that, hey, for this qualification dollar amount, you have to reduce the amount of debt you have or make more money, right? The other part is with the credit score itself. Now, technically, the VA doesn't have a minimum credit score, but there are things like, hey, you can demonstrate 12 months of on-time payments across all your debt. Like, that's something that's important that they want to take a look at. And another piece that is a bit more complicated is some lenders only use Fannie Mae and others use Freddie Mac. Like, we use both. So on one system, you can be denied, and on the other one, you could be approved. It's kind of crazy how that system works. But like Clay mentioned, VA disability compensation plays a big factor in both income counting towards your liabilities. So you can use VA disability income right away to qualify. And two, depending on the state and the county, you can also get property tax breaks based on your VA disability, which, you know, I dropped a video not too long ago talking about how your mortgage payment goes up. So for all you homeowners out there, make sure you're checking the tax bill, because tax bills are coming out. Make sure you're checking your homeowner's insurance on the anniversary or a month before the anniversary of when you bought your house, because your payment can change, right? So all those things are factored in. And if you want some help, Ron, you can schedule a call with me in the link down below. And happy to just walk you through that situation because, you know, a lender should really walk you through why they can do something or why they can't do something. And we've had a lot of people reach out where I'm like, they didn't give me an answer on what's going on. We take a look at it and we're like, yes, you can do this right now. Or it's like, this is exactly what steps you need in order to get where you want to be.
Yeah. We have 2 new members, and we have a super chat for David. Whoa, David. Okay. 2 new members with Family Crosby. Thank you very much for joining. We definitely appreciate that. And Christy Miller. Awesome. And from Patrick R. says, David, what percentage is required to get a certificate of eligibility for a VA home loan? They are reservists. Thank y'all for spreading the good word.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I guess clarification, if you have a VA disability or 10% or more, then you don't have to pay what's called the VA funding fee. Now, when it comes to you being able to utilize your VA home loan, right? So there's 2 parts to a VA loan. It's your eligibility and qualification. Eligibility is your time and service and character of discharge. That's your certificate of eligibility. That's like your passport to use the VA loan. Then it's qualification. Do you meet the credit, income, and collateral, right? Do you have the credit needed to get a VA loan? Do you make enough money to cover the bills? And do you have enough assets to pay closing costs, right? And then the other part is going to be the loan itself. Does the building support the VA loan? So in the eligibility piece, and I did also a whole video on that, kind of breaking down what are the requirements for active duty, guard, and reservist. But for reservist, as long as you've served, if you served active duty time before this 24 months of active duty time, you already have the VA loan. If you're just straight reserve, you need to do 6 years in the reserves, and you need to drill all your drills plus make up any drills so you have enough points to be able to use the VA loan. Now, if you've deployed for more than 90 days on Title 10 orders in the reserve, even if you just serve for a year, you're already eligible for the VA home loan. So that's a great question on that. And if you're having issues getting your certificate of eligibility, you can also reach out and I can pull it for you and help you through that process, because most likely you would need to get a statement of service from your chain of command.
Can't hear you, Clay, so I'll go ahead and jump in. So,
Dummy. What a dummy.
yeah, good
Okay,
job.
go ahead.
Whatever. Yeah, fail. At least we're live. So, you know, what I wanted to just throw out there to kind of get the juices flowing for folks for any more questions, and I'll kick it back over to Clay to pick and pillage out of those chats. The title, at least on my thumbnail for the live, was Changes Happening in 2025. And I want to kind of not stay in that world, but at least acknowledge it. What we have seen is a lot of saber rattling, right? No real changes. Saber rattling, right? Okay, not really sure what's going to happen. Who couldn't, who knows? Let's set that aside. Let's talk about real changes that will be happening most likely in 2025. And we've talked about it a bunch of times, but I just want to throw it out there for the folks to have any questions in this. Is we're looking at the proposed rating schedule changes for neurological, auditory, respiratory, and mental health. The whole rating schedule, okay? Those things are all being changed. Is this something that's not going to happen? No, it is going to happen. And they've already changed a bunch of rating schedules and they're changing them all. It's a long process. So this will be happening. And so I just want to throw it out there so people know that this is this is happening. The stuff like the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, they don't even recommend, by the way, which is super. Imagine for a second, if you worked for a place where you work for a place called the Budget Office and you don't even need to make a recommendation. You give options. My God, what a safe place to work is that, right? I mean, that's so ridiculous. But so anyway, most of you have seen and heard about the Congressional Budget Office options, which they have the chance of a snowball in hell, is the bottom line. So most likely that won't happen today. Does it mean we should be quiet about it? No, we should still be irritated and let people know we're aware of it. But the real changes are these rating schedule changes. Back to you, Clay. Go ahead and pick and pillage, my friend.
Yeah, I have one that's kind of a good segue on what you said. He says, dude, I'm this close to starting to file, and I feel like I won't be able to receive anything, because we don't say bad words, Mr. John Lawrence, because of all the possible changes. 23 years in service, multiple tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, this is the bad thing about doing content on changes. On one hand, we want veterans to be informed and know. On the other hand, you know, how many veterans take that and just run? They just run with it, and they're like, oh my goodness, tinnitus is going away. And it's like, well, relax, because technically you're not wrong. The diagnostic code's going away, but they're roping it under other diagnostic codes. Okay, so VA disability claims, it's a constant nuanced world of what's good is bad and what's bad is good, and these changes are no different. Now, it's my opinion that tinnitus is favorable. I think so. It's more accurate and in line with medical advancements, and I'm using the quotes for a reason. It's also my opinion that the others are not. So mental health, sleep apnea, and to include the neurological changes for radiculopathy, to be specific. But Mr. John Lawrence and anyone who feels like this, I do want to say, I don't care if they change every rating to 10%. It's not happening. Don't run with that one. Okay. If you're going to run with anything,
that's what they'll remember. That's it. That's all they're going to remember.
Let's say they change everything to 10%, no matter what. I would still urge veterans to be properly rated. So focus on what you can control, right? What's your evidence from service? Get the current diagnosis. I'm going to assume you've been out for quite some time, just based on how you said that. So you're really going to need to focus on evidence from service, focus on your current diagnosis, submit that evidence-based claim. If you want to go the Nexus Letter route, some veterans should absolutely consider it. Some don't need to. If your medical records are absolutely stacked to the wall of evidence, you're going to be fine. Okay. And so, John, my message to you is, who cares? Be properly rated, whether that's 30% or 100 or on the SMC scale. It's completely irrelevant as to what those changes look like. We aim to be properly rated. Now,
and throw out there too that, look, filing your intent to file today freezes everything today. So you will live in this world of what is out there today. File the intent to file. It takes the weight off your shoulders. It gives you 12 months to develop your claim.
Yeah. Now, I know what Jason's opinions on all these because we talk about it. At least we probably have like 40 hours of conversation around this topic. I actually want to kick it to David. What is your opinion on the tinnitus changes, the mental health changes, the sleep apnea changes? I'm assuming you know that, by the way.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Also, before you answer that, we have another donation from Killian, a super sticker. I appreciate that, dude. He's one of my Discord moderators. So thank you for your hard work, man. I definitely appreciate it. All right, go ahead. What's your opinion? What do you got?
I mean, I would say the challenge is, and I've said this before, is that VA home loan benefits seem to get better and better, and VA disability benefits seem to get worse over time. So the longer you wait, like if you think today, it's just like home ownership. It's like if you think today it's hard, just wait till next year where they change more laws. And guess what? As long as if you file right now and next year it becomes more favorable, then can't you go back in and file a new claim for that condition? And then they could work out in your favor. Am I wrong on that?
You're assuming that it's in your favor.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that a lot of times people are just assuming that if I don't do it now, or like, hey, I'm going to wait till next year, maybe it's going to be better. And I really don't see that happening. But as long as you take the steps to file, and because like I talked to somebody today and they're like, it's been like 20 some years since they served. And when they called the VA originally, they're like, oh, you don't qualify for VA benefits because you make too much money. And then that's what basically stopped them from filing the benefits. And if they would have filed then, think of how many changes happened since then.
Yeah.
But you protect yourself because if it becomes more favorable, that's good for you, right? Then you can go back and refile. It's like literally like this stuff in what I do in the housing space is like in line with that.
There is no reason to wait.
None.
Is the bottom line. The only reason that you could possibly think of to hold off on filing a claim is if you're in the reserves and you're wanting to continue to stay in the reserves and you're worried about having too big of a rate, you start filing for things that could actually get you medically discharged, then you could possibly have some issues there. So tread lightly in that world. You can file claims and you can have a rating and you can have all of that while you're in the reserves, and you'll have to select whether or not you want to collect your VA money or your reserve money. But if you start to, there's a rating schedule within the DOD that actually mirrors the rating schedule on the VA side. It's just not as there's not as many conditions, and the conditions on the DOD side are ones that actually could get you medically discharged. Just you start talking about your migraines in the reserves. They're like, well, now you're non-deployable. So what can you do? You know what I mean? Where tinnitus would not be a non-deployable status if you have some tinnitus, right? So you just have to be careful on that. So there is that. Anyway, back to you, Clay.
Yeah. And I like how you brought up the intent to file and also the reserve. So first off, the best position to be in during these VA SRD changes is you have an intent to file, then the rating schedule changes because you get best of both worlds. If the new schedule is favorable, you get it. If the new schedule sucks, then you get the old one. It is the best position. So if you don't have an intent to file right now, it takes you 2.5 minutes, probably 5 minutes because you got to log into VA. You can start a claim, have an intent to file. That's it. That whole conversation has been avoided. And then for the reserves, this is a true story. It did happen this morning. I'm at work. I'm talking to someone, and they are looking at retiring, and now they want to talk VA disability claim. And so first off, I'm just like, just want to punch them in the face because I'm like, dude, you've been out of service for like, what, 20 years? You should have did this 20 years ago. But then they say, well, I left active duty in 2009. When should I have submitted my claim? And I was like, 2009. I was like, well, when did you join the reserves? He said, oh, the day after. And I was like, the day after you joined the reserves is when you should have submitted your claims, right? Meaning, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Jason, because a lot of reservists and National Guard just kind of wait. Oh, I'm not going to do VA disability claims until I retire, right? You're leaving a lot of non-taxable income on the table, a lot of it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, especially if you go from like active to reserves, you have a few pumps in you. The dude I talked to was a GWAT veteran, so they already had multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghan from that 01 to 09 time frame. And so I don't know what his rating's going to be, but I can tell you, if you go back from 09 to right now, he's lost money. David?
Oh,
Yeah, and what's a big difference too, if you're in the, let's say in the Guard, is that every time you deploy, you can file for VA disability, which is different than being on active duty. If you're on active duty, you come back and then you kind of build your paperwork, and then when you get discharged or prior to that, you file your disability. In the Guard side, you come off a deployment, you get things documented on your deployment, you can go ahead and file for your disability. And to Jason's point, they can discharge you, but what I've seen from, let's say, from the Guard side, plenty of people that I know are 100% PNT, and they serve in just normal capacity, fully deployable and everything, which is very odd, but it's just the world that, yeah, that's there.
Yeah. I want to throw something out real quick because I did see a question and now I can't find it, but it did prompt it in my mind. So the best time to be thinking about filing a claim is actually when you're still in active duty capacity, right? So if you're filing nowadays, it's a lot different than, 10, 15, 20 years ago, back when Clay was 3. The times have changed. So it's for all the old jokes you do.
I have no complaints.
Right. So the BDD, which is benefits delivery discharge claim, is fantastic, but the real value here is the awareness. Okay. You can file a claim while you're currently in service and you're getting ready to get out. And you could do that in between the 3 to 6 month time frame before your discharge. But here's the important piece. Anything that you get diagnosed for that's chronic in nature while you're still on active duty creates the nexus.
Yeah.
By the date itself. So back to Nexus Letter that you mentioned. Nexus Letter and Nexus are two completely different things. A nexus is required for service connection unless it's a presumptive condition. So a nexus is required. A Nexus Letter is not. A Nexus Letter helps you to establish the nexus. If you get diagnosed while you're in service, the date alone, because it's in your time in service, creates that nexus. So if you're in service and you're filing a BDD claim and you're filing for 6, 7, 8 things, you need to be sitting down and doing a self-assessment inside and out and going, okay, that time I twisted my ankle, I do notice that it doesn't quite bend as far anymore. I should go get diagnosed for that, right? Range of motion issues, whatever your issues are. In fact, I even go as far as, look, if you're on active duty service, you should Google search your own demographic and common conditions, right? Common ailments. Go get checked for those things. One, hopefully you don't have anything, but if you do, you caught it early and you caught it while you were on active duty, which then creates that nexus. Back to you, Clay. It looks like you're finding some good. Oh, you know what? I got a question for David because I saw this question back up at the very beginning. I saw a question, David, and it said, does a certificate of eligibility expire?
Great question.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so great question. So typically lenders do want to see a certificate of eligibility within a 60-day window of it being pulled. Technically, once you have that certificate, there's no expiration on there like a driver's license, but lenders want to see it within 60 days. And the reason behind that is, let's say, for example, you're on active duty and you've served 1 year in the service. And let's say you get discharged, and now all of a sudden you don't meet the criteria for using the VA home loan. So if you used an old one, we may not know that, hey, that is actually expired and you're not eligible for the VA home loan. So it actually happens more often than not. But that's the reason why we request it to be current.
Awesome.
And that's
Thank
pretty
you.
easy to do that. You just go on va.gov and you can pull it yourself, or you can schedule a call with me. And I know someone asked, how do you get a hold of me? In the description, there's a link to schedule a call, or check out the channel VA Housing Education. And literally, if you can't contact me off of that, we may have a problem.
Okay, so this is I'm going to answer this one in full. It doesn't just pertain to drop foot. It's all diagnosis. So the VA does not rate the diagnosis. I know that sounds weird. I'm going to explain that. And I'm hoping this works. I haven't done this on this stream yet. Did we lose? Did I drop Jason?
I think it just threw me in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hold
No,
on.
it's fine.
Let me explain this. So
Do
you
it.
can see here, and I'm going to zoom in for you. No, I'm not. I'm going to zoom back out. So we see plantar fasciitis. This is a diagnostic code. In this case, the VA has ratings for plantar fasciitis, all right? Then we see flat foot over here. You scroll down, you're going to see weak foot, claw foot. I mean, just all kinds of nasty foot toe conditions, right? And then we see other. Foot injury is other. So to answer your question, it's probably going to be under here. But to answer it in full is if there's not a diagnostic code for your diagnosis, the VA will find what it best aligns to. And if you have a weird condition that's rated like drop foot, if you look at your rating code sheet, it'll tell you what diagnostic code you're rated under. And so, for instance, like the bare bone, the most basic example of this was actually how the VA used to rate GERD, right? So there used to not be a rating schedule for GERD because the VA doesn't rate diagnosis. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. They rate symptoms, and based on your symptoms, they find a diagnostic code. Now that changed because now there is a diagnostic code for GERD, except for it pertains to esophageal stricture. Okay, so now if you have other GERD-like symptoms, technically the VA could find somewhere else to put those. They're not going to, because it's going to fall under 0% for GERD. And of note, if you're on medication for GERD without esophageal stricture, that's going to push you to 10%. I believe that's going to be a small change in the M21 TAC 1 here soon if it already hasn't happened. Jason, do you have any things to add on diagnostic codes? Because that kind of gets weird when you look at very weird, minute conditions like drop foot.
Right. Yeah. You know, you bring up a good point, and it's really the bottom line is that if your specific condition is not in black and white for the VA, they just find something as close as they can to it, and then they just rate you against that. One of the things that's with regard to diagnostic codes, and I'm just want to touch on this because we talked about it for a minute up front, is the proposed elimination of the diagnostic code for tinnitus. Now, what they're doing is they're completely removing tinnitus out of the rating schedule. Doesn't exist as a standalone diagnostic code that can be rated. So now because we didn't really dive into what they're doing. So what they're going to do is they're going to go, cool, you have tinnitus. That's a symptom of something else. Maybe you have a TBI that has some tinnitus going on. So now we're going to rate you, we, the VA, are going to rate you based on your signs and symptoms of TBI with tinnitus. And it might not actually, or whatever it is. It could be, Meniere's disease is a good one. So Meniere's disease is like vertigo. You kind of have an unsteady gait when you walk, what have you. Meniere's disease can be with or without tinnitus. The ratings are the same. It doesn't matter. It's not like, oh, with tinnitus, it's a higher rating. They're like, whatever. It's just another symptom. And so you're not going to benefit as much as I think people might think they would. It's not like you're getting an extra benefit. The consequence to removing tinnitus completely from the rating schedule as a standalone condition, the consequence for veterans who have never filed for it and aren't currently rated for it because you're good, it's everybody else down the road, is now you don't have that standalone condition that could warrant potential secondary conditions off of it. Some are harder than others to get, but I've seen people with migraines secondary to tinnitus. I've seen people with depression or anxiety as a secondary to tinnitus, but that ability would go away from having that standalone condition of tinnitus. Now, there is one little workaround, and then I'll kick it back to you, Clay. And actually, we have one more thing after this.
Yeah.
Is with tinnitus, there's one little workaround that if you have a hearing loss diagnosis and subsequent service connection for hearing loss at a 0 compensable rating, so 0% hearing loss with tinnitus, they'll give you a 10%. Basically for the added tinnitus. The other thing I wanted to throw out just for people who don't know, the intent to file. Okay, the intent to file. Clay was talking about how it's a very easy form, super easy to file. There's two options. It's either it's going to be for a compensation claim or it's going to be for a pension claim. Mm-hmm. That's it. VA disability compensation, my bad back, my knee, my migraines, whatever it is, compensation. Okay, you check the box. You don't need to say what conditions you're going to file for. That just stays blank. There's not even a spot for that. So you don't even need to know what you're going to file for. All you need to know is I'm going to be filing for a compensation claim sometime here in the next 12 months. So that's just an important piece. Don't hold off because you're like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to be filing. Compensation, check the box, file your intent to file. You're good to go. You can file for 47 things 10 months from now. Clay.
Yes, awesome. We have some more super chats, and then David, we have another VA home loan question I'm going to pass your way. So Billy Green, I want to say Billy Graham for no reason, but hey, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. David Dottie says, thanks for all the info, Clay. Any chance of running something by you in an email? Yes. Let me know that you are David Dottie. If your email has nothing to do with your name, there's no way I'm going to know it's you. So make sure you let me know. I'm not going to put my email in the chat because I'm going to get 1,000 emails. Just find my email. All right, it's on my YouTube channel page. Tracy M, thank you for being a member. We appreciate that. And then lastly, Dex with a $20 donation. Thank you, dude. Says, it is really irritating when people don't understand VA compensation pay. They always ask why you can work. It really should be called VA efficiency rating. Clay, you've been a big help. Finally got 100% P&T. Thanks, guys. First off, Dex, congrats on your 100% P&T. I hope with that back pay, you pay off debt. You know, that's what every time someone gets back pay and they know me, I'm saying, you better not have a car payment. If you get back pay from the VA, you better not have a car payment, okay? Anyways, congrats to you. And I also agree. I would probably name it like service connection compensation and just take VA disability out of it altogether, just to really look at service connection, because that's what it is, and then the compensation is for the service connection. I think that would not just clear the air. If I was king for a day, I would do the name change simply because there's a huge stigma on disability. I work with another person who is old school. Okay. They are old school. And I'm telling you, I'm not making this up at all. This dude is American. He's an American's American, works super hard. We're federal employees. We have 8-hour days. He comes in early and works more than 8 hours. And he has done that every single day I've been there, which is almost 6 years now. This dude is just, he's a hard charger, and he's never going to submit for VA disability because that's just who he is. And I think small little name changes, getting away from that culture will change that. Okay. Food for thought. Anyways, MEBSR12, thank you for being a member of someone's channel. We definitely appreciate that. Says, David, for VA construction loans, is it more reasonable to go that route or go ahead and go conventional and refinance with VA home loan? For my own understanding, can you just tell me what a construction loan is, why someone would use it, and then go ahead and then answer that, because I'm lost in the sauce.
So if you want to build, or you want a builder to build your house, and you want to build a custom home, spec it out the way you want it, you want to buy the land, then you can get a construction loan. It's different than buying a new construction, because that's just a regular loan. This is where you are actually the financier of the entire project, right? So if it's a $500,000 full build with land acquisition, you basically pay interest on the money you draw, maybe $100,000 at a time. And then when you're done with the loan, it converts to a regular loan, or you might have to refinance it. Sometimes you can do a one-time close. You get the same loan that you started with. So that's kind of the general gist of a construction loan. Now, there are VA construction lenders out there that specialize in VA construction loans. We don't do those just because you really have to specialize and just have a team for that. If you go down the route of using a conventional loan to do there's no technically conventional, like banks do portfolio loans and then you refinance out of those into regular loans, or you stay in a portfolio loan. The disadvantage is when you refinance is that one, you really need to have 90% equity in order to get the best deal possible. Two, if you don't have, if you flip from a conventional or a portfolio loan to a VA loan is what I mean. Two, if you don't have a service-connected disability, you pay a 3.3% VA funding fee no matter how much equity you have in the property, because it's still considered a cash-out refinance. That's a very fine, small point, which has a huge impact for the amount of dollars. Now, I did do a whole video understanding should you use the VA loan the first time around, but you're going to have to kind of do your due diligence on the lender and how much they charge, just to make sure that you are getting a good deal. The other big part to this is that, let's say, for instance, I own land, and if I wanted to do the work myself or be the GC, I could. VA loan doesn't allow for that. No, does a regular construction loan. You would have to get a specialty construction loan, so it requires an even higher down payment, normally 25%. So it really depends on the route you're trying to go. But if you just have a builder that you've hired and you want to purchase the land, then you can go down the VA construction route, because again, at the end of the day, the less times you refinance, the more money you put in your pocket. And it's also riskier because in theory, people hope things get better, but what if they get worse? And now you're in this short-term mortgage that you have to refinance out of, and then you refinance it to even worse terms. And what if you don't qualify at that time? So it can be somewhat risky, but you can kind of figure that out by either scheduling a call with me, and then I could walk you through it and then point you in the right direction with other banks that can do those. At least you kind of get the off your chest.
Okay, sorry.
I think we're all sick.
EODNE, thank you for that. All right. Now I'm glad I caught this, because it looks like he had just pushed enter without typing anything. So I went and just scrolled. I wanted to make sure we got this one because it was going to get lost in the chat if I didn't grab it quick. Says, would be great to hear about CRSC for those injured in theater, folks, and how that correlates to the regular claims. Navy EOD here. Awesome info. Okay. So I helped one of my good friends go through this same process. It's important to note that last year, I want to say fall, maybe summer, the VA pulled this onto their like a va.gov website and made it easier to find this information. But technically speaking, the CRSC is a claim through your service component, right? So for instance, let's say it's not just combat related, like EOD here, you were blown up, bam, you got shrapnel on your face. Now you have like this skin condition on your face or scarring. That can be CRSC, looking at like retirement and pulling that essentially non-taxable pay. Okay. It can also be for things like airborne, things that are hazardous duties or incentive pays. One of my friends broke his back, his lower spine, airborne, which has to, I can't imagine falling from the sky, landing with a broken back. That just has to, I just can't even comprehend that. Anyways, it's also for things like that. So, although it's called combat related, there's still the hazard duty, incentive pays involved there. But how do you do it? You submit a claim, right? You go through the VA. The VA made it easier to do that, but it's just like any other claim. Now, to be specific for you, you absolutely have to have the evidence showing the source of the injury, which for Navy EOD would probably be pretty easy. And just to be clear here, that does not include claims like PTSD. Okay. So food for thought. It just depends on what your situation is. I assume EOD. I assume you've been blown up, actually blown up. I mean, I can't even like imagine that either. Like I've been close to some IEDs, but I've always watched someone else go through them, not me. I don't know if that's the best way to say that or not. But Jason, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so CRSC. So for those that don't know, combat related special compensation is what that stands for. And I'm just going to rattle off a couple things here, just straight off that website, just as a quick awareness. And I'm going to front load this with, if you think that this is something that you qualify for, reach out to a VA accredited representative and have them walk you through it if you are having any issues with it. But you can also go straight on the VA's website and you can also file a claim there. So all of these must be true. You're retired and entitled to or receiving military retirement pay, and you have a VA disability rating of at least 10%, and you currently have your DOD retirement payments reduced by the amount of your VA disability payments. Okay, so it's that crazy offset. For anybody who's retired, if you have an offset, you know what that is, and that sucks. Next is, one of these must be true. You had 20 or more years of service in the military, National Guard, Reserve. You're retired for medical reasons with a disability rating of at least 30% under Chapter 61. You're covered under under TARA. You're on TARA. Okay, for those that don't know, Temporary Early Retirement Act, that TARA. And then you're on the temporary disability retired list, or you're on a permanent disability retired list. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of nuance, like everything with VA. But if you think anywhere in there that's something that you might meet, I suggest reaching out to an accredited representative in your area. And the reason why I always say that, one, is they're getting information real time. They get training 2-3 times a year from the VA, but also it's a good time to get in there and do what I call a benefits checkup. Make sure that you're solid on all of your benefits. There might be some state benefits that you weren't aware of that they can share with you that you now qualify for, or a whole host of other things. Maybe there's secondaries that they could talk to you about and really spend that time with you individually. All right, back to you, Clay.
Yeah, we got more super chats, which is weird because usually we don't have super chats. Here we have Patrick R. Thank you very much. This one is a tricky question, and it actually revolves around a change that did happen, which is a major change, by the way. Where in the world is a tinnitus DBQ? My ENT is willing to fill it out, but there's nothing on the DBQ page. Do I just get a Nexus letter and go to the CMP exam for it? Autocorrect on here sucks. Okay, so a few things. The reason why it says it's relevant to a change is because the tinnitus DBQ, which is actually on hearing loss, is one of the DBQs the VA keeps close hold, right? Just like the TBI DBQ. Now, I'm going to show you, don't take my word for it. Hopefully this works again. I'm going to show you where we see that.
Thanks a lot, Clay.
I'm sorry. Okay. If you scroll down and it says right here, note if the veteran has hearing loss or tinnitus attributable to any ear condition listed above, a hearing loss and tinnitus questionnaire must also be completed. Okay, no big deal. So now we go to the public-facing DBQ list, and you don't see it on here. Why? Because the VA chooses to keep it private, and that kind of gets back to I believe was signed on Christmas Eve. Right, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, I know where you're going with that. I might touch on it.
Yeah, please.
Here's the thing with tinnitus, okay? And I want to be clear here with Nexus letters and DBQs. These are the two most common things that you need, and that we see folks need from their medical providers, right? Let's not sugarcoat this. The VA and the disability claims process is a legal process that could be seen by a judge and ruled either for you, against you, whatever. Everything you provide is considered evidence, okay? There's a lot of legalese that's tied into all of this stuff, and it's important to understand that. When you talk about these two things, Nexus letter, DBQ, this is the most basic way to understand it. Nexus letter helps you to establish your service connection, period. Now, you could add more in there to help you, but really that's what that tool is for. The DBQ really outlines the severity of your symptom as it relates to the schedule of ratings, okay? And I'm going to answer the question here in a minute, but the DBQ helps to establish the severity in a nice, clear fashion, so it makes it really easy for the VA rater to go, disability questionnaire, rating schedule. Okay, I clearly see that you should be rated X. For migraines, for an example, are you a 10, a 30, a 50? That DBQ will really outline that for the rater. Makes it really easy. You're a 30%. You meet all the criteria. It's all right here in the form. Very easy. Tinnitus doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's only a 10% rating. There is no trying to figure it out. It's either you are service connected for it or you're not. And if you are, it's a 10%. That's it. There is no sliding scale. So you don't even really need even if there was one that you could use today, you really don't need it. You just need to prove that you actually have tinnitus. Now, what Clay was bringing up, back right around Christmas time, there was a piece of legislation that got signed into law that very blatantly, right, Clay? Wouldn't that be a good word for that, right? Just in your face. If you read it, you're like, wow, they aren't hiding that. We're just telling you,
and we know it.
Right? Oh man, it was almost disturbing to read. Basically, Congress and the president at the time, which would have been Joe Biden in Christmas time of 2024, signed off on this piece of legislation and made it law. And in there, it pretty much, I'm going to paraphrase it, VA, you now have the ability to remove any public-facing DBQs that you deem might not be filled out quite appropriately to your standards within the VA and the CFR and all the legalese. If you don't think that it could be filled out appropriately from the public. In other words, let's focus on your contracted C&P examiners who you can train to fill these out, and your internal staff that can be trained to fill these out to your requirements. That's basically what they were saying. So we in this community here sharing information are a little bit wary of if these things are going to continue to exist as we move forward. This isn't the video for that. I have my own thoughts on it. So does Clay. But is there anything you want to add to that legislation, Clay?
We see the public-facing DBQs in, take the TBI one, for example, because it's already private. And so the reason I'm using TBI is because if I wanted a DBQ for TBI, I'm not going to get one. However, if I want to get a private Nexus letter for that, what that provider is going to do if you go to a good one. Okay. And I'm just going to tabletop that there for a second, and people can just interpret that as they will. Evidence is evidence. And so the evidence that would be transferred onto the TBI DBQ is still going to be the Nexus letter. So is it the end of the world if public facing DBQs for whatever condition goes away? No, it sucks. It makes it harder. It's another speed bump. It's definitely not the end of the world. Now, the issue is explain that to a veteran, to a brand new veteran who doesn't understand the process, and they're trying to learn about TBI and they're Googling TBI DBQ. They're not going to find it, unless they're on the dark web. Don't get any ideas from that, by the way. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Now, we have a few super chats I want to get through and then kick it to David for another VA home loan question. Dex says, absolutely. This is his second super chat, dude. So first off, thank you times 3,000. All right. Question about back pay. I think the amount they calculated for back pay is off. I filed an audit claim with the VA. Should it be the difference between the amount you were being paid and the 100%? Okay. I'm just going to assume, like, for a number of reasons, let's just say February of 2024, you were 90%, right? Your intent to file was October of 2024. Your claim was adjudicated in February 18th. You're now 100% P&T. Congrats. So what does that mean for back pay? That means because your intent to file was in October of 24, your back pay should be the difference between 90 and 100% for October, November, December, January, February. But keep in mind, it depends on what day in October your intent to file was. I'm going to assume it wasn't the 1st. And then it's also February 18th. And so the VA is not going to prorate things. All right. So you should receive 4 months of back pay of the difference from 90 to 100 with that little made up scenario. That doesn't include dependents. That doesn't include SMCs. But the way to get it corrected, Dex, is to file, you said audit claim. It would have just been a simple HLR as well. That could work too. The VA, the math, the VA normally doesn't get wrong. Back pay, the VA gets wrong all the time. Now, I'm going to speed through this just to get back to David here. Tracy Nichols. It says US here on StreamYard. On YouTube, it's a bunch of American flags. So God bless you and God bless America, Tracy. Thank you very much. And then Adrian with a super sticker. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. And for David here, I just had it up. I'm an idiot. Give me a second. Give me a second. Stardust. How does my entitlement work out of state? Does it go off the first state I bought my house in? Thank you for putting this video together. I don't even know what he's talking about, so I also want to know the answer to this question.
It's a good question, because a lot of people, it's a question a lot of people have on how much entitlement you have. So, along with your certificate of eligibility, on there, it's going to show how much entitlement you have. Now, if you don't have an outstanding VA home loan, it's going to say $36,000. And no, that is not the limit of the VA home loan. So as of I think 2019, the VA loan, if you don't have an outstanding limit, has no limit no matter where you buy. You want to buy a $5 million property with no money down, you can do that because you have your full entitlement. Now, this also includes if you have a current home and you're purchasing another property, but your current property with the VA loan is going to sell in the morning and you're going to be able to buy in the afternoon. Then you can qualify for your full entitlement, but it'll be subject to you selling your property with the VA loan. So in this question, that's a general understanding of the entitlement. Now, when you don't, not because the VA doesn't want to make it confusing or anything, 2 sets of rules. No limit when you don't have a VA loan, and then you go back to the Fannie Mae single family loan limit for the area that you live in. So for example, across the country right now, the loan limit is $806,500. In high cost areas, it's more. It's like 1.2 something million dollars. So it depends on how much original entitlement you had locked into your property. So if you bought a house for $206,500, you technically still have $600,000 left to purchase another property without a down payment. But in this same example, you want to buy a $700,000 property, then you have to put a down payment of 25% on the spread. And in this case, $100,000. So it's a 25% down payment. In another, so that's kind of like the general piece of that. So you may go to Hawaii where the loan limit's much higher. All of a sudden, in that same example, now you can go up to $1 million without a down payment. So it just really depends, not where you originally used it, but where you're going to use it. And even if you've exhausted your entire entitlement, you still can use the VA loan and just do a 25% down payment, right? The VA loan's still a big benefit, I think, compared to a lot of other loan products that exist. And technically, there's no limit on how many VA home loans you can have. So I have some veterans that buy homes, they renovate them, they live in them, and then they have 25% equity. They just refinance the VA into a VA loan, but not use any of their entitlement because they have the 25% equity. So it's a power move that veterans can make. It's just, I think, understanding that stuff is a little bit complex.
I mean, the math isn't math in my head. That's why we have people like David here to explain that. And I think David's camera went off, but it is a good time. David, are you there?
I'm here, but the camera needed to cool down, I guess.
Oh, it's got to cool. You got to blow on it.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I do
Just
think we
mute
should
your mic.
end it. Yeah, we should end it there.
Yeah.
And we have a great segue question here. How do I call David? David, you can just put out your contact information. How do people reach out to you on that? And then Jason, if you can so kindly take us away with the end all be all beautiful, scripture like word of the outro.
Yeah. So if you guys want to contact me, you can go to vahousingeducation.com and schedule a call. I think it's the easiest thing because when people just call in during the daytime, it's kind of days are very structured. But go on the website VA Housing Education or check out the channel VA Housing Education on YouTube. And then you can, in all the videos, I have a link to schedule a call. And also in the description here, you guys could schedule a call as well. So thanks again for having me on again, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this is great. Glad everybody made it. We've hung on for an hour and 7 minutes for everyone. So we're glad that you're here. Thanks for hanging on with us, for those that made it all the way through. And, just a quick little add on here. The rating schedule changes that we talked about on all of our channels, maybe not David's, but on all the other channels, we have done many videos on these rating schedule changes that are supposed to be going into effect this August. Neurological, mental health, respiratory, auditory. So please check that out if this is new information to you, so you understand what's going on. Look, it's not anything about, let's scare people. It's about, hey, if you need to file this type of a claim, you should probably do it sooner than later. We're trying to eliminate the I wish I would have known. And that's what it is, right? Every single one of us has those. We're trying to eliminate them. So with that, thanks so much for watching. We truly appreciate every single one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.
There it is. Nice.
Ha.